Okay, we are in the final leg, guys, the final part here. Thank you so much if you made it this far. And again, I have a legal defense fund. I appreciate if you would donate to it. We all know that these people are like. By this point, you should definitely see what type of people they're like. And I want to be able to continue to report on this, and your donations will help me do that. So, continuing on, obviously, progressive Yamhill members hate the police and trash talk America on September 11th. These are some, I think, rather revealing opinions they felt comfortable saying within the echo chamber of their secret Facebook Mafia Club. I think everyone should hear them too. Here's a Yamhill County sheriff asking people to be reasonable, respectful, and patriotic people on September 10th, right before, saying, don't forget, we got to stop being so politically divisive, is what the sheriff asked people to do. And instead, they trash talk America. Here's Megan saying, ugh. Ugh, she says. I remember September 12th. I was living in Boston overnight. Cheap American flags popped up everywhere, especially on people's cars. But September 15th, highways were littered with broken American flags, piling up like snowdrifts along the concrete barriers that are ubiquitous on minor highways in the Boston area, which sounds a bit outlandish, but let's continue on. The piles stayed there for weeks, growing in size, along with my discomfort. I very much doubt this, okay? But anyway, she was working for a tech company, and her darker-skinned colleagues reported people telling him for the first time in his life that he should go back where he came from. And there's all of them talking all kinds of stuff here. So the most tragic and horrible attack on American soil in the country's history. Megan just wants to talk about how she thinks it's terrible to reflect on it, because America's racist, okay? She doesn't think you should reflect on the day, trying to find any symbolic, moral meaning from it. Don't do that, because America's racist, okay? September 11th must be justified, is what her words seem to imply. Her words have the effect of justifying 9/11, since she is disgusted by anyone, such as a sheriff, asking people to remember that day and try to be better people. And they're all like this. So just so we're clear, defund the police. This is an important thing, because one of them talked about, how you should actually think of defunding the police to correct, another one of them. They're chastising another one of their members. What he meant is a way to reframe deceptively, okay, what they're actually doing. The objective of these social activists is to divert funding away from law enforcement and toward nonprofits who have no accountability and can spend the money however they want, such as on salaries for themselves and toward political objectives. That's what defund the police is actually about. It's about making communities unstable and allowing criminals to prosper, while funding the very activities that lead to more crime, such as the causes these indivisible people support, because it will lead to a dismantling of America. I realize that sounds biased, but it's far more honest than what the defund the police rhetoric is actually aimed to do. So you can read more of it as you like. Then this guy said, Kimberly says, remember September 12th and the rampant Islamophobia our country is still facing. Fuck this post, is what she says. So lovely. Very lovely people, aren't they? Here's a thread where they are upset that Newburgh police won't let them have unrestricted access to private documents to perform a so-called audit as part of their efforts to try to, I assume, defund the Newburgh Police Department. And former Newburgh City Councilwoman Elizabeth Rogers Curtis Gemery here saying how she demanded that they be able to do some audit to harass the police department. And here's a whole thread about that. Here's a local newspaper business trash talking the Newburgh Police Department for something that happened. The George Floyd incident happened almost 2,000 miles away in an entirely different state, and trying to claim the situation is somehow relevant. That was done by Pollinate Flowers on June 1st, 2020. Lovely, lovely, lovely fucking people. Newburgh City Council member Stephanie Bell Findley right there giving people in progressive Yamhill marching orders on to harass people here. She says, let me see here. She says, we need people to take a step further and contact people directly responsible for law enforcement. She says, hint, hint, call and email your city manager, chief of police, and the city council. That's right. More harassment of the police. Miscellaneous hatred of Christians. This, I think, is going to bother a lot of people in Newburgh. Now, of course, I'm an atheist, right? But I'm not a militant atheist. But I'm not religious. However, I am a large supporter of the freedom of religion in America. I attend religious functions like funerals and weddings, and I believe these rituals serve important functions in our societies. Unlike many other atheists, I don't have any problem with holidays like Christmas or using crosses in cemeteries, and it upsets me very much when atheist activist groups cause unnecessary strife in society by harassing people about their religious beliefs for no good reason. I didn't become an atheist because I hate religion. I became an atheist because the amount of knowledge I have makes it impossible for me to believe in magic. I think there are many valuable things about religion that I now don't have access to, such as community through churches, and that's the price I've paid for the knowledge I now have. I'm comfortable with that exchange, but it's not going to be a path I think everyone necessarily must walk. I generally try to avoid having conversations with people who are religious about the topic of atheism, as I'm uncomfortable with being the reason a person loses their faith. This is because I understand the value of what is lost, and the exchange is not necessarily an equivalent one. Besides this, just because I personally think people shouldn't believe in magic doesn't give me the right to demand others stop believing in it, or to try to force them to do so, since believing in magic isn't necessarily bad. Humanity has come a pretty long way believing in magical things. Context matters. America wouldn't even exist without Enlightenment philosophers, nearly all of which were Christians, whose religious ideas informed their viewpoints. It's also undeniable that Christians were the driving force behind the ending of slavery and the common humanity approach to diversity. I mean, Martin Luther King Jr., Christian preacher. Okay? The only times I speak up about religion is when I think people are being exploited, like when people are sold fake cures for diseases. Diseases. I don't think most religious people are being exploited by having faith in something that promotes virtuous behavior. Anyway, I just wanted to preface that a little bit. I didn't mean to get, dramatic about it. My point is, these guys are crazy. They seem to believe if Black Lives Matter flags can't hang from the rafters of the school campus, then nobody should be allowed to wear crosses as a piece of jewelry. This is the kind of zealousness I don't support. People wearing crosses, acts, hijabs, whatever else, have nothing to do with this issue. Protective amulets are not worn for the same reasons these people want to display political flags in the schools, and yet here they are talking about that stuff, right? They have such disrespect for others that their recall canvassers went to someone's funeral to ask for signatures to recall Lindsay Berkshire. Okay? And you got a whole thread about this. So, very lovely. Very lovely. A very odd thread about how much they hated the Chick-fil-A food truck. This, I think, is related to the hatred of traditional Christian values. It's not mere disagreement, it's hatred, okay? These guys actually have a mega thread in the group about how they harassed the Chick-fil-A food truck because they don't like the politics of the founder of the company. It's absolutely insane. I'm not going to read it to you, unfortunately, but it's pretty nuts. It's important because as you read at the start of this article, Megan Corvos chastises members when they try to discuss things she deems unrelated to local politics and unimportant to the political agenda of their mafia. The purpose of the cult is to take political action and cause change. Megan Corvus clearly believes this is a worthy issue of local politics and for the group to obsess about, thus her own participation in it. The harassment of a food truck. These are the leaders of the Democratic Party in Yamhill County. If you're a supporter of the Democrats in Yamhill County, this is what you're following and who your votes are empowering, okay? How do we get rid of the Chick-fil-A food truck? Then there's a whole thread about it. You can't even make this stuff up, okay? It's a long thread. It's a long thread about how to get rid of the food truck. Absolutely crazy. And Megan Corvos is all over this thing. All right, all over this thing. I know, it's still going on, isn't it? It's crazy. You can also see how even when there is dissent in the group, the other members badger the dissenter to conform to the irrational groupthink. So here's Marta Soap, former City of Newburgh Councilman Robert Soap's daughter, and she's a legitimate crazy person. Okay, she's an admin. She's a moderator of the group. Okay, she's fair game on this. All right, she's very representative of how crazy some of these people are. So, former City of Newburgh Councilman Robert Soap is known for his left-leaning politics, so it shouldn't shock anyone to learn his daughter, Marta Katerina Soap, is one of their group admins. Okay, here she is, smiling face. I'm singling her out in this section because I think it's important people understand what kind of people they actually are. The ones who are guiding the barrel of the cannon the progressive Yamhill group is. Marta Soap is the kind of nutcase who spends her time finding new ways to harass her neighbors instead of enjoying a day at the river like a normal person. So here she is saying, my daughter and I live on river in Newburgh and often go count how many boat trailers there are to see how busy it is. Today's count was 72 trucks with boat trailers. There were probably 50 people walking around, loading, unloading, and not a single mask. The boat dock was packed. Several people like, what kind of freaking lunatic goes around counting people's trucks while they're at the river trying to enjoy the weekend? Marta Soap hate watches Trump campaign newsletters for some reason that is totally unfathomable to me. Here she is. I get Trump campaign emails to watch what he is saying to supporters. Marta Soap is one of those nutters who only wants to purchase products and services from people who fully support her cult ideology. Does anyone know of a more progressive nursery/farm supply place that's close by? We did a huge order from Growers Nursery, but they had the wrong stickers on the truck, so we got to get rid of them. And the really crazy thing is, here's Megan Corbo saying, hey, I have a source for you. Hang on a sec, and I'll introduce you. Like, she's got a list of progressive people growing plants, you know? Of course she has a list of vendors for this specific industry who support the ideology, because this is an encouraged behavior for their cult members to focus on. Supporting fellow cult members' businesses, you see. And here's some of the comments about a politician running for governor I think should be more public. Here's Stan Pulliam for governor, and she suggests some very unflattering things about him that I can't reproduce, or I'll probably get a community guidelines strike on my channel. Her family has apparently made some efforts to try to help her get out of the cult, but I'm afraid she is too far gone into the madness. She views their efforts to help her as morally wrong, makes fun of them behind their back as a gesture of allegiance to the cult. I guess her dad, as left-leaning as he is, from my understanding, gave her a copy of Unmasked by Annie No, which is a very good book that I do recommend people read because it will help you understand a lot of stuff related to Antifa. She says, you can't choose your birth family. My dad sent me this book, and I don't want it. And, she uses it as an opportunity to virtue signal here. So, lovely, lovely person. Antifa is not an idea or a concept. It's a terrorist organization that is organized in a similar way to Al-Qaeda, in that it's a network of associated groups and lone wolf operators who carry out its agenda. It has a similar organization structure as the Indivisible movement, which has enormous overlaps between itself and Antifa, since many people who are involved in Antifa are also involved in the Indivisible movement, using the Indivisible cells to support Antifa activities. I haven't shown a lot of that here. It will be in another article where I talk about more of that stuff. Also, she has no idea how to manage a city, nor do any of these other idiots. So here they are talking about city council stuff, and they'll have a long thing about affordable housing. And I decided, I read too much of their nonsense. I have to respond to this, okay? Affordable housing, at least in the policies they advocate for, is a broken system, okay? Building new housing means that new infrastructure must be created to support the people who will live in that housing, such as new roads and utilities and so on, right? So that stuff is expensive, especially to maintain. So commercial development, such as new grocery stores and gas stations, also has to be built to support the new population, which means other development must take place alongside the new housing, right? Then you have to factor in all the added expenses for development, such as the absurdly high rezoning fees that cities and counties are charging in Oregon, especially in a town like Newburgh, that drives up the price of those homes so the developer can make a profit. This also causes bidding wars for land near the new housing, further driving up the price of the homes, as well as other development in the area, and the sale price of homes that were already built inflate too. Next, Because Oregon has over-depended on welfare programs to assist low-income people, which, in many cases means drug-addicted vagrants. This has the effect of inflating the rent prices. The welfare programs increase the amount of rent this demographic of person can pay for rent. This means when welfare recipients, grant awardees, and low-interest subsidized home loaners bid for housing, both leased and purchased, they end up bidding above the average income of other residents in the area who would otherwise have placed bids for that type of housing. This allows landlords and homeowners to charge higher prices for their units than they otherwise would have been able to do. I mean, it's not like a wealthy Silicon Valley retiree is going to move into a crappy apartment, right? They're moving to the area has little to do with the price of housing for low-income families. The wealthy people aren't bidding for those housing units. It's the welfare recipients who are. Basically, your affordable housing policies make housing in the area less affordable for low-income families, not more affordable. You're not allowing the capitalist system to function correctly and are sabotaging it with socialism and then turning around and blaming capitalism for the outcome. Landlords would have to reduce their prices if you stop pumping money into low-income demographics because their customers would have less money to spend. The conditions of the job market in areas like Newburgh doesn't justify the cost of housing increases that are largely a result of your terrible socialist experiments. You interfered when you saw a trend of wealthy people overbidding for land and did not wait it out to self-correct itself. Instead, you injected socialism into capitalism and the local economy broke. This is why the house I lived in with my parents on West Sheridan Street in Newburgh before they divorced, which has almost no backyard, only has 2 bedrooms, and whose road access is a gravel road, and that sits very close to a railroad track and has some questionable construction elements to it as well, has a listed property value of almost $500,000. In actuality, it should only be worth around $200,000 at best. It's because idiots have mismanaged the state and city with gross overdependence on welfare programs instead of new job creation that everything is so out of whack housing-wise. Stop artificially inflating the economy and the prices will go down, okay? I mean, city of Newburgh, renting an apartment, it costs when I lived in the area and I rented here, right? I paid like $450 a month for an apartment. That same apartment now is renting for like over $1,200. It's ridiculous. Affordable housing is a lie in the current economic situation the Willamette Valley is facing. New development leads to an increase in costs, not a decrease. The reason housing prices started inflating is because of the wine tourism that brings wealthy people from other areas of the country like San Francisco to move here and compete with each other for land and houses, which drives up the price of the sale of those homes. This did drive up the value of the land for everyone else in the area, but that land price increase is a temporary trend that would self-correct as other homes are sold at normal levels. But the trend can't self-correct to normal property value levels if you're interfering with socialist programs to keep the values up. The only people this crap actually benefits are the local real estate developers and sellers, many of whom, for the record, are members in the progressive Yamhill group. Which brings us to, I won't show it here, but real estate development and strange bedfellows. Philip Higgins, a real estate broker, involved in some long conversations with officials who have purview over housing and development committees. I don't have evidence of any kickbacks, but the presence of real estate agents, land developers, elected officials in multiple cities and at the county level who oversee these kind of urban development deals comes across as extremely shady to me, especially given the direction of the conversations in which individuals are involved in them. The thread is so long, I put it into a second article, and you'll be able to click here once I publish both of these articles at the same time. Okay, progressive Yamhill is a cult. This I didn't finish as much. I'll probably just leave it the way it is, right? Here's some examples of the general nature of the cult. Here's somebody, Maria Linehan, saying, can anyone recommend me a good progressive dentist? Because the politics of your dentist matters a lot, apparently. They are obsessed with people's politics. Most important thing, not merit or skill or anything, right? Like having the correct ideas, far more important for their cult ideology. Ensuring they remain in a political echo chamber. The favoritism to progressive Yamhill members from the press is pretty obvious. McVinnville-based News Register seems to have been giving the group very flattering coverage for many years. Here we talk about a lot of stuff related to that, okay? A bunch of stuff. They talk about flattering coverage and connections, okay, with being able to get their press out there. I couldn't find what column Sheila Barnes was referring to in this. It doesn't really matter. I'm not going to list every article, okay? You got a downloadable list of members. Just cross-reference news articles about social issues, and you'll have a better understanding of what's taking place in your local news now. So, Progressive Yamhill, huge supporter of the Yamhillis Westsider Trail. I haven't put as much in here as I probably could. Maybe I might just make another article about this. Yeah, Progressive Yamhill Mafia. Big supporter of what I consider to be a wasteful government spending project called the Yamhillis Westsider Trail. It's a mountain bike path that is realistically only of interest to the few hundred people who actually want to ride a mountain bike between Hag Lake and Carlton, and will probably only do so once in their entire life. The project costs millions of taxpayer dollars, and the construction will interfere with the business of small farmers in the area, which is far more important than someone's mountain bike hobby. The folks in Progressive Yamhill don't care about the farmers or how much money the project wastes because they, like all narcissists, view their hobbies as the most important thing about life, and everybody else needs to accommodate them. These are the same jerks who ride mountain bikes up steep, windy, two-lane mountain roads with sharp cliffs and dead men pass curves, knowing full well they hold traffic up for everyone else trying to get home after a long day at work. These jerks feel entitled to ride mountain bikes in a suicidal way that inconveniences everyone else who has to try extra hard to not accidentally run them over when they suddenly appear from the other side of a cliff. Casey Coolott seems to be one of these assholes, since part of his campaign promise for governorship of Oregon is to remove private Willamette River access for homeowners, so people who paddle boat, which is apparently another one of his hobbies, can just walk through everyone else's backyard and do whatever. Again, these narcissists believe everyone else has to step aside for their frickin' hobbies, okay? Here's the Yamhill County Commissioner and Progressive Yamhill loyalist, Casey Coolott, breaking public meeting laws to talk about the trail. And I've got messages about this here, all right? And I'll probably just dump another flyer here. He says, we'll do it together, you know? That's where the loyalties really lie. Why is this being allowed to happen, okay? Where are the conservatives who should be resisting these conspiracies? Let's contrast this level of organization exhibited by the Democrats to the Republican Party, who has seemingly given up on certain states they must think are beyond hope due to the perception of how mighty the Democratic Party in these states are. I think Oregon must be among these states the Republicans have abandoned. During the course of my investigation, I tried to reach out to the Republican Party chapters in Yamhill, Multnomah, and Clackamas County, even the Oregon Republican Party. My phone calls and emails have not been responded to. Multnomah and Clackamas don't even have working phone numbers listed on their websites, okay? I should point out, I am talking about as an organized party. There are individual Republicans who do want to resist these efforts, but they don't seem to really understand social media and how it is being employed as a tool by these social activists. The Republican candidates for municipal and county offices tend to be older individuals who aren't as proficient with digital media. So they don't even know where to begin to look to try to find these conspiracies and how the culprits are organizing. It takes more than just candidates to deal with this kind of thing. It requires staff and volunteers. This aspect of the Republicans seems to be underwhelming compared to the operations used by the Democrats. People who read my articles might think I'm a Republican, but in actuality, I'm presently a registered Democrat. I would consider myself a moderate, and I cannot support the direction the party has gone over the past decade due to the influence of regressives such as these people I am exposing. Thus, my reporting is independent of any political party or movement and only represents what I believe to be the shared American values of our country, okay? Unlike the subjects of my exposés, who plot in secret against their neighbors, my articles have not been created as part of any organized scheme or pack or anything of the kind, while people who are members of both the Democratic and Republican Party have contributed some information to me. My words and reasoning are absolutely my own. My point here is that I think the Republican Party in Oregon is in tatters, and, compared to the Democrats, far less organized in their efforts. This is probably the main reason why the most extreme factions of the Democratic Party have been able to seize so much control over the state. They face no worthy opposition to restore proper frames of reference for what is right and just. That may be a hard pill for so many Republicans to swallow, but it's plainly evident this is the present state of things. It was incredibly easy for me to uncover this criminal conspiracy involving so many Democrat-affiliated individuals that are designed expressly to benefit the Democratic Party in Oregon and its agenda. Why did the Republicans do nothing to stop it? Lack of organization is certainly a major factor, and probably a lack of heart to fight the battles even when alerted to them. This has to change. There must become worthy opposition to the ambitions of the Democratic Party in Oregon if balance of the political culture is to be restored to the state. This is probably the situation in other states too, such as California and Washington. In any case, as I said before, people need to start paying attention to local politics more. Facebook has in many ways, I think, been detrimental to local news, as people focus on what trends when millions of people share something instead of what is most important, what happens in your own local government. We become a culture that focuses on politics for presidential elections instead of local elections. Yes, the presidential elections are important, but presidents do not govern the city you actually live in. The kinds of people who are organized in Yamhill Progressive, or Progressive Yamhill, whatever, are seeking and have been able to obtain positions of power that can, and I think are, wrecking the local communities with policies that simply are not designed to improve life for all in an equal way. Their goal is segregation, their goal is to dismantle and rebuild, their goal is chaos, their goal is collapse. Most of them would prefer we abandon capitalism altogether and become a purely socialist society, and many of them want people to die because they have a different political ideology than their cult. And here's an example here. Here's Sheila Barnes. Red states threatening to secede. Let them die. Let them die, guys. Okay, that's what she says. She says, therefore, many of them will eventually get sick and die from the virus because they won't mask up. Let them secede. Let them get each other sick and die. That's what she says. Okay. Regular, everyday citizens have to start focusing just a bit less on their hobbies and whatever else they are doing, and start remembering citizenship is not something we do every couple of years. Citizenship is every day. Some of you reading this article are surely old enough to remember when we used to teach civics education in the schools, why it is so important for citizens to be involved in local government and pay attention. Don't let the talking heads on the national news distract you so much away from what is actually truly most important and how much power you actually do possess. Okay, I am one man and I have exposed a criminal conspiracy involving over 2,000 people. You can do something too. Get involved in your local government. Remember the roots of this country. It was a long, hard-fought battle to obtain a republic where America delivered on the promises of the Declaration of Independence. Don't let other people undo what has been achieved just because you can't be bothered to pay attention and stand up against tyranny like past Americans did. You've got to find that spark of courage in your heart. It's in there somewhere. Don't be content to watch others save the day. Do it yourself if you can, and you probably can. You just gotta try. The American dream is not yet dead, no matter what some people are saying. The American dream is still alive, and it's now time for you to gather your courage and stand up to ensure it remains that way. Hold these people accountable for what they have done, report their crimes to appropriate authorities, and stop supporting their political activities. There is no compromise to be had with seditious traitors that want to destroy the country. I have seen nothing that is redeemable about their agenda. I severely doubt the Democratic Party can be salvaged at this point. This radical faction has control over the party. I'm seriously considering starting a new political party to replace it. While as a moderate I see value in many of the Republican Party platforms and values, I think its leadership is asleep at the wheel, and I'm not going to join that bus. You can't put fires out from inside the house. I want a political party that is actually truly progressive. Hedonism is not progressive. We have to update our education system so that children are taught authentic history in its proper historical context. That does not mean glossing over uncomfortable parts, but it does mean not expecting children to owe blood debts for things they had nothing to do with. Teaching children history the way critical race theory wants it is a terrible injustice to these kids. We have to start teaching scientifically accurate biology in health classes again. We need to get the insanity of John Money out of our schools. His ideas ruined the lives of his test subjects, and they ruin the lives of everyone else too. We have to return to teaching logic and rhetoric again. It is absurd. So many teachers in the Newburgh School District who are involved in this nonsense cannot employ either in any meaningful way. Clearly, there is a dire need for this area of education to be re-implemented into the public school system. We have to start focusing on job creation over welfare again. Welfare is supposed to be temporary. You're not supposed to live on it for the rest of your life. We're artificially inflating the local economies with too much focus on welfare and not enough on creation of economic opportunities. And the only people profiting from this are land developers. The average person is not. We have to start treating vagrancy, often mistakenly referred to as homelessness, as a mental health problem instead of a financial one again. Most of these people are on drugs or have other serious mental health issues that are leading them to be homeless. Welfare and overpriced housing development deals can't solve a mental health crisis. America has serious problems. Oregon has serious problems. Our cities have problems. No one in progressive Yamhill has any useful solutions. And that seems to me to be intentional. This is what happens when you believe everything about America at present is designed to abuse black and browns, and that the whole thing has to be destroyed. Having the wrong idea about how society is working is more likely to lead to wrong solutions to actual problems and make things worse. No matter how much you might disagree with me on some things, if you have even a little bit of sanity in you, then you must recognize how regressive it truly is to implement segregation into the schools, which is what these people are doing. The indivisible movement is on the wrong track. They have to be stopped. Moderate, everyday people need to take back control of our democracy and get it out of the hands of extremist nutters. That's enough of my rant, okay? If you agree with anything I've said, please reach out to me. Let's see what we can do to fix this mess before it's too late. About the author, final section of this, okay? This is for the press, who I'm sure will be picking the story up, and those in the press involved in this conspiracy who will be trying to discredit it as a means of saving their reputations. I am a semi-retired entrepreneur in digital media, president of Marshall Broadcasting Systems. I was born in Newburgh. I enlisted when I was 17, served 5 years of service, including a tour of duty during Operation Iraqi Freedom. I'm an honorably discharged Army veteran, lifetime member of the VFW. I operate the men's lifestyle magazine, Millennial Gentleman. This is my personal blog, and my hometown is a personal matter, so I chose this blog as the medium for this reporting. I am a descendant of men who fought in the Revolutionary War for liberty against the British, for the Union in the Civil War against the Confederacy, and against the Axis powers in World War II. My family has lived in Newburgh almost a century. It is my sacred duty as the inheritor of my ancestors' will to ensure tyranny does not root itself here. I am organizing to recall Newburgh Mayor Rick Rogers, City Council members who have allowed this conspiracy, especially those who actively participated in its organization. I support the Newburgh School Board members who voted to remove divisive anti-American political symbols from our schools, and this article is the only evidence you should need to see. That decision to support the school board brand is the correct one. To those who hate what I have done, you can do your worst to discredit me. I'll do my best, and I'll win the narrative, because truth is on my side. It's not on yours. And as I said before, I've got a legal defense fund. I'm not going to sell it to you too hard again. Okay? It's available. It's there. If you want to see me continue to report on this stuff, please contribute to it. I really appreciate that. Guys, this is the end of the podcast. I hope that you feel that you've learned something. I hope that you're driven now. You understand the importance of your actions in local government. You who's listening to this right now, you have to act. I'm telling you. This is an existential crisis we are facing. Please do something. Thank you.